So much to see. And you made it here. We're very grateful. This is a joint offering from the Open Knowledge Foundation and the European Journalism Center. It's part of the School of Data, which is by now the third iteration here at the Perugia Festival. And this morning, it's Linda Sandvik, who is currently a fellow with the Knight-Mozilla OpenNews Foundation. And you are at The Guardian, right? Yes. And you just told me when we spoke before, at The Guardian, they're by now training in the newsroom, like what the fellows are doing. And they sit down with other editors, teaching them and showing them how to scrape data. Like not to the deepest extent, like on a computer science level, right? No. It's self-help. It's just showing editors, and that's an essential knowledge. Right now, I can tell from the newsroom of Deutsche Welle, which is a big newsroom with 500 editors, if they are supposed to scrape something from the web, nothing happens. And that is, it's kind of, I would always describe web scraping as interviewing databases or interviewing web pages. Yeah, you can do an interview for the structure of the data.
Well, that's more of the data cleaning process, okay. I would say. When you have the data, then yeah, you have to interrogate the data. Okay. But right now we're going to look at how to get the data.
Yeah, there's one thing that I need to tell you. If you're interested in getting a certificate, if that helps you, that we're handing out certificates for this session and the one afterwards with Friedrich Lindenberg. That is an offer. Just come to us, to Milena or me, and we set you up with that. And then one thing, you would like to do it as interactive as possible, right? Yes. You don't like the format of talking 1.5 hours about website. So we have the option that you start a computer, or we look into a computer, and that we break up a little bit. Yeah, that you can see what can be done with web scraping and what to do under certain circumstances and so on. Okay. Yes,
great.
Stage is yours.
Thank you. And thanks for coming on this Saturday morning in the rain. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the web and what it's made of and how to scrape it using simple tools, no programming required. So yeah, hello, I'm Linda. I'm a Knight-Mozilla fellow at The Guardian. I'm HyperLinda on Twitter. And let's get started. What is the web? So if we accept the answer that the internet is a series of tubes, then the web is all those documents of hyperlinks that are connected that you can access via those tubes. And they're just documents, like normal text documents that can be read by a browser. And it mostly consists of cat pictures, right? So a lot of people and organizations and governments and businesses put information on the web, but it's not always in the format that we want, and that's where scraping comes in. But just a little bit about the web still. So you want to look up a website on your computer. So you say, hello, I'd like to see this web page. And then there's a special computer that knows where all the website lives. And the website lives on a computer that is always on. And computers that are always on, we call servers. And you might also hear that sometimes something lives in the cloud, but the cloud is just a bunch of other people's computers, basically. So I used to teach 9-year-olds how to program before I was a Knight-Mozilla fellow. So that's where this illustration is from. But yeah, it is basically just a bunch of computers talking to each other and then giving you the documents that you want on your computer. Simples. So what is HTML? HTML is the markup language that web pages are written in, and they are read by browsers. And a markup language is basically a language that describes what is there, and we describe it using tags. So to tell the browser what to display, you can have a tag that looks like that. So you have, this is some text, and you put this square, this like bracket, P bracket, and you have your paragraph in there. And then you have this slash to close the tag on the other side. P stands for paragraph. It's pretty simple. And that just tells the browser that this is some text is a paragraph. It will try its best to display the information even if it doesn't have the tags around it. Like browsers are pretty forgiving that way, which is helpful if anyone makes a mistake. But we can use the structure of tags to more easily extract the data we want from the websites. So some of the common tags, so we have anchor, which we call links usually, OL, ordered list, or UL, unordered list. Ordered lists just have numbers next to them, and unordered lists are usually just bullet points. So we have LI for list item. We have all the heading tags from age 1 to age 6. Age 1 is the most important, and if you look at the styling, it is like the biggest, and then they get like gradually smaller with the default HTML styling that browsers have. HR, horizontal rule. Div, it doesn't display as anything, but it's just a way of grouping elements together. And we're going to use it later for when we're scraping. And image, IMG is a special element that doesn't have a closing tag, but we use it for putting images in. And then we have a table, and I hope you're all familiar with tables in like spreadsheets or tables of data. Tables are really handy, and if the data that you want is in a table, it is usually very, very easy to get it, but it's not always in a table, unfortunately. So I just wanted to demonstrate how to make a very simple web page. And I don't know how to so I'm just creating a text file on my desktop, and the reason I'm using the command line for that, don't be scared, it's just because I don't know how to right-click on a Mac and create a file, because I'm so used to PC. So I was using command line tool just to create this file. But you can create it any way you want. Doesn't matter that I use the command line tool. So this is a web page.txt. So I want to edit it. I want to put some information in there. Right now it's just empty. So I'm just opening it in a text editor, and I like TextMate as a text editor, but you can use anything. So if I just write, this is a web page, like that, no tags, nothing, save it. If I try to open it, it opens in the default text editor for Mac, which I'm not even sure what it's called, text edit. So it's not a web page yet. To make it a web page, you have to put an HTML at the end there. So instead of txt, if I write HTML and save it, use HTML, when I open it, it will open in a browser. And you can see that it says this is a web page, very small, up in the corner. Even though I didn't put any tags or anything around it, the browser does its best to display the information. So browsers are very nice like that. Now I could change it to age 1 just by writing the opening tag and then the closing tag. So the closing tag is the same as opening tag, it just has the / in front of it. Save that and refresh it. And then you can see that it got a lot bigger because the default styling for an H1 is to make it big because it's a headline. But that is like the very, very basics of a web page. So let's look at some web pages. Yeah. Sorry about that. So X-ray goggles is a thing that I use with the kids when I teach them about how to use websites. It's pretty easy to install. You just take this bookmarklet thing and drag it to your bookmarklet toolbar and drop it. I already have it installed. If you can't see your toolbar, you can go to View, and then you should have some sort of View show bookmark. And let's go to the Guardian website. So the top story today is Tories increasingly panic-stricken. Yes. So let's have a look at this website with X-ray goggles. So I just click the bookmarklet, and it comes up with like these things. And then I can just hover over all the different things. It might be a bit small for you to see. Come closer if you can't see it. So we have this age 1, Tories increasingly panic-stricken. It's a headline, and it's the most important headline. Then underneath we have a paragraph. And then underneath that there's an image. On the side here we have an image and a link, an anchor, it's a link. And we have a paragraph with a link inside it. When you have an element inside another element, you call it a child element. And here we have a time. Yeah, interesting. So that lets us know it's a time. It's HTML5. And then here we have an unordered list. And inside the unordered list, we should have some links, or no, yeah, list item. It's a bit tricky to hover, but you have the H3. Inside each element, there's an H4 and an image. So yeah, if you're ever wondering what a website is made of, you can use this tool to easily just hover over things and see what they are. A bunch of paragraphs, obviously. And then you can also change things with this tool. So if I want to change this image to something else, I just clicked on it. And I remove the source that is for the image. Delete that, put in my own image. That was wrong. I was using Place Kitten. Let's see, I have so many tabs open. Let's see. Place Kitten is my favorite place to get images of kittens. So if I copy this picture, I can put that in instead. And now we have a kitten! Yeah! Obviously I have improved this article a lot right now with kittens. So the where it says SRC, that means source, that's an attribute. So on the image tag, we're just putting where to find the image, basically. And then we also have an alternate text, that is the second attribute here. And the alternate text, what would I say? Kitten.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
How did you open the box?
Open the box, okay. So I am using this X-ray goggles. So I have X-ray goggles activated, and you can see it here. And when you hover over the things, you can see what they're made of. And to edit, you just click, and then it opens the box at the bottom, and it says, so I clicked on the H1 and it will say H1, it has a class, and this is the content of the H1, and I can write kitten time to change it.
So it keeps the local.
Hmm?
It keeps the local version of the website.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's just right there. If you refresh the site, everything will disappear. But it's a good way to.
I think it's worth saying it again, like it's not like we're changing forever.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we are not actually changing the Guardian website here. I think they would fire me if I did that. This is just like on your local computer. It only lives in your local computer, and if I refresh, like it will lose all the changes that I made. But a lot of people like this, especially when I'm doing this workshop in the UK. Everyone likes to go to. I still write News BBC to go to BBC because that's what the URL used to be like years ago. Like, yeah, now it's bbc.co.uk news. I still write news.bbc, like years later. So everyone likes to basically go to the BBC front page and do their worst damage. So yeah, if you want to spend a few minutes just doing that, using X-ray goggles, just hover over the things, see what they are, and then click on them. So we have some different here that we haven't talked about, like span and we have a lot of A's inside this A. That's interesting.
I'm sorry, could you explain how to install it?
Yeah, sorry. So X-ray goggles. So I just Googled for X-ray goggles because the URL is too long, and the link has like an install at the bottom. So if you click that, X-ray goggles goes to the install page. And to install it, you need to have this bookmark toolbar. To get the, like if it's not showing, you go to view and you can go always show toolbar. Or if you're in Firefox, you have show all bookmarks or view toolbars, and then you check bookmarks toolbar. And then you just drag it to your toolbar and it will install. I already have it installed, which is why it's not installing, but I mean I could delete it and install it again just by dragging it, and you get that plus in Chrome. It works in Firefox, and I think most browsers it should work in. I have it here as well. And if you want a good place for kitten images, Place Kitten has a lot of kitten images. They're cute. So I do this workshop also with kids, and they are quite good at like writing the news that they want to hear. So if you go to BBC, so we could change this, and instead of saying "I will miss Top Gear," says Clarkson, we can write "We will not miss you, Clarkson," something like that. But yeah, that is basically what websites are made of. It's pretty simple. They are just like all these little elements inside their tags. Of course, you can also use developer tools. So all the browsers come with developer tools. Escape to exit X-ray goggles. In Firefox, it's called Firebug. Chrome is just developer tools, and Opera is like Dragonfly. I forget all of them what's called, but you can usually find them if you go to View, and like towards the bottom there will be like developer tools or Firebug or something, depending on which browser you use. And you can use this also to look at what is inside, but you get like a whole lot more information because you see it in context. So here's a paragraph, and there's the anchor inside. And you can also use this to change it, but it's not as nice and friendly as the X-ray goggles. So if you're all done doing graffiti on the BBC website or any other websites, we can move on to scraping. So basically, why do we scrape websites? Well, it's to get data when other methods will not work. Like in the UK, we are actually very, very lucky that we have a lot of government data that is in already nice, usable formats. Like they give you the spreadsheets, and you can just get them, but sometimes you don't get the data in exactly the format you want, and then it might be a good idea to scrape it. Just to save time when available data is not in the format we want, and sometimes, you know, like the data is hidden, they don't try to publish it too well, and then we can also use scraping. And scraping is basically just getting all those elements of the HTML website by using some sort of automation. So just to give you a few quick examples, when I joined as an OpenNews fellow, we have these OpenNews community calls every 2 weeks, and each of them has a call log, and in the call log everyone puts their Twitter handle. But you know, there's a lot of archives for this, and I wanted to make a list of all the people I should follow on Twitter. And it would take so long to like go in each of these links and then find that roll call for that one, and then like manually copy each and every one of them. It would take a long, long time. So instead, I just make a scraper. It goes through all of those links automatically, gets all the Twitter handles, and I could put it in a Twitter list. There was a lot of duplicates, of course, but it was like 175 different people, so that would have taken a lot of time to do it manually. And then another good way, another thing where people use scrapers a lot is when the government websites are just too old and not user-friendly enough. So this is Cal Access, which is supposed to give you access to all the finance contribution data for California. So whenever a person or an organization or a company donates money to a political candidate, it has to be recorded, and this website is supposed to show you all of that. But it's not, like you can see when this website was made, probably. And also, you can see in the top on the alert, it says top 10 contributor links, and you might think that when you click that, you will get a list of the top 10 contributors, but no, you're still 5 clicks away. And even when you get to it eventually, it is like a very weird image format and things. So if you wanted the nice tabular data, it's just like very hard to find. So one of the projects I've been a little bit involved in is collaboration with the LA Times and Stanford and Center for Investigative Reporting, where they basically scrape that whole website and put it in a nice table. Like, this is what we want, none of those fancy images. And we just want a table with all the data, and then you can go and explore that data and find stories in there. And I mean, this is a collaboration between sort of competing newsrooms, but they decided that it is not worth their time to everyone struggle with the CalAccess website. It's better to collaborate and have this data, and then they can compete on the analysis of that data. I mean, that's the journalism, right? It shouldn't be so hard to get the data. And then this is another project I was involved in just before Christmas. Map the banks from open corporates. So it says like the financial crisis cost society over $10 trillion. Before we can disrupt the industry, we need to understand what it looks like. And this is a case where there just isn't a data of all the financial institutions of the world. There just isn't a database for that. I mean, all the different countries have licenses for financial institutions in that country, but so many of them operate in multiple countries, and so many of them are like owned by other companies that are owned by other companies, and like they all end up in like Hong Kong or somewhere. So the data might be there, but it's not there in a really usable format. Just because there isn't all of the data together in one database. So what open corporates have done is they have made like a list of missions where anyone can write a scraper, and they'll have a list of all the things that all the websites that they want scraping, like so many people from around the world can just write a simple scraper for one website, but when you put all of them together, all of a sudden you can have like all of the financial licensing data of the world, and then you can like start doing interesting deep dives into like, okay, what does this actually mean? So separately, none of these data sets are really that interesting, but when you put them together, they are. So yeah, let's look at some actual scraping, and I want to look at Importio and webscraper.io. So that first one was Import.io. So here is the festival program in an actually very nice usable format. And there were spreadsheets and things. But let's imagine if there wasn't. We could make one. So Importio has this magic data scraper where you just insert a URL, and then you can ask for the data. And it tries to give the best guess it can about what is the data that you actually want. So from the festival program, it has gotten the titles and then the descriptions of those titles. So if you can see here, it's actually just the titles that the descriptions are not on this page, but it has realized that, oh, this is a link, and then it's gone to the second page, and then it has taken the description from that second page. So that's actually quite clever when it works. But let's say you wanted some other data. Maybe you didn't want the descriptions, maybe you wanted the times. then it's not giving you that, and you have to go like, well, I wasn't looking for this data, and it just tells you to download the desktop app instead. Of course, you can install the desktop app, but let's just stick to using your browser tools for now. So there is the other scraper, which was webscraper.io. And it's a plugin for Chrome, and you can download it on the Chrome store. And it just asks you to install. I already installed it, so I don't have the install button up here. And then when you have actually installed it, you need to restart Chrome. It's just one of those things. And then to do things, you go to View, Developer, you have your developer tools. So this is a Chrome version of Firebug, which I was using earlier. I use all the browsers. Sorry if that's confusing. So you have these developer tools, and then at the end you have this web scraper. So if I wanted to scrape this, I can make a new sitemap, create a new sitemap, and then you're supposed to put the name and the URL. So this is the URL, and I'm gonna call it conference program. It has to be all lowercase for some reason. It doesn't just convert that for you. And then you put in the URL, create sitemap, and then it knows what URL to scrape, but now it wants to know, well, what am I looking for? So to tell it what you're looking for, you have to add selectors. So you click on add selector, and then you have the select that lets you just hover over things again. So let's say I want all of this. And you can click again to show it that it wants more, and then it realized, oh, you want everything in that column. That's okay, I'll add everything in the column, but it hasn't realized that I want everything in all of the columns. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We kind of installed it, but we can't get to this view. How can we do it?
Oh, the view? So if you go to the festival program, then you go View and Developer Tools. Sorry?
Which browser you're using?
Chrome. Did you install the web scraper IO? I can. I don't know what view is in Russian.
We'll figure out.
So, do you have like file like the menu and such? So the menu on top of Chrome should have file edit and then view. And then it's the bottom option of view, hopefully, if there's any consistency between the English one and the Russian one. Yeah, you found it? Or?
We're on it. So, yeah, go ahead.
Has everyone else managed to install the web scraper IO? Probably not, no. So yeah, it's in developer tools, which is usually the bottom option on Vue. And then web scraper is like the last one of the things that you can inspect. So anyways, I was saying that it has realized that I want all of them, but it hasn't realized that I want all of the days as well. But if I just click on this first one, it says, oh, you probably want all of them. So I'm going to say, yes, I do want all of them. And I'm going to call it item. And they are multiple. And they are in root. Why didn't it select? Yes, select. Okay, it should show up here now. I can write it manually. So save selector. And then it also has this very nice data preview. So you can see, what is it actually getting? Oh, it's getting the time, it's getting the hotel, it's getting the title. So it's getting all these things, so you know we selected the right thing. And then if I just wanted the title, so I clicked on the selector, add a new selector. This time I want a text selector. And I go select, and I just want the title, which is this one. So I just click on the titles, and it realized I want all the titles eventually. Okay, that's annoying. It should like automatically put this in. Actually, I think I just want the H4. I'm just going to go for the H4. So selector. Forgot to write the title in. And then to do the scraping, you go to the sitemap again, but it has a drop down, and you can just click scrape. And then when you have scraped as well, you can also export the data as CSV. So I made a few different ones. So like conference program, scrape, start scraping. It opens a pop-up when it starts scraping. And then when it's finished scraping, it just closes it, and then you see all the data. So these are all the titles of the workshop. And then you can download that as CSV. So it just starts a browser download to like where your default downloads are. So that is pretty handy. Although in this case, Importio did a good job.
Where are the typical limits of import.io?
So it will do a guess of what you want. So let me show you an example. So here I have a list of MPs. So when I did Importio on this program, it figured out, oh, you probably want this link. There are lots of links here. These are the titles. You probably want them. And what happens when I click on it? Well, we get this description, and you probably want this. This looks like data. So it just guessed that. but sometimes it guesses wrong. So if I go to the parliament.uk list of MPs, now we have a general election coming up, so this is like the previous MPs, but I have this list of MPs, and if you click on each, these are all links, you click on them, and then you get a lot of information about them. So what constituency they are MP for instance, and where they have worked in the past, and what committees they are part of. So if I put that into Importio and go extract data, then that is not very useful. I don't have the list of MPs. Instead, I have some images and some of the titles and the links, and it hasn't given me even the list of MPs. So if I wanted the list of MPs and their constituencies, I could do that with web scraper IO. So if I go again to View, Developer Tools, and then web scraper sits on the end, I click on it. So the first thing you need to do is always to create a sitemap, and it's basically just putting in the link of the first place you wanted to scrape. And then create new sitemap, put in the name and then the URL. So I'll just call it Parliament. Well, it's members, the URL, so we have it. And then I want a new selector, so I can tell it what to select, because I don't want this, I don't want the images, I don't want all this on the side, I want the names of the people. So I say create new selector. And actually it's a link selector. I want this link, and I can select, and then it understands that I want all of them, but only the A's. It doesn't know that I want the B's, but if I click the B's, it will select all of them immediately. I don't have to click on two of them, and it has actually now selected all of the list. But just because that is like very, very long, I'm not going to do that. I am just going to select A just for the purposes of this, just so it doesn't take too long. So selecting the A's. So we go MPs, their links. There's multiple of them, it's not just one. And they are inside, well, their root. It's just like what is the URL to search, and it's the one we did. Why didn't it enable? I'm selecting. I put it in there now. And if I go now inside this one, I can open one of them up and say, I want to know where they are currently an MP for. And it's the first one. And because it's consistent, it's the first one for everyone. I can do this. So I'm getting the first there. I have to click done selecting to get it to be entered into here. And then save. And you have to name it, and I always forget. So constituency. Save. And then you can preview the data. So it's getting Hackney North and Stoke Newington. which is the one we want. So if I go to scrape, start scraping. Now you can set the time and the page load delay, but this is the minimum one that WebScrape.io allows. So that's why if you have a very lot of data, it can take a long time because you can't do it very, very quickly. Well, you can do it in 2 seconds, which is not very, very quickly if you're doing loads. So now it is like starting to go to all of those links. It's doing it automatically, it's going through all of them and it's collecting the data. And I'm not doing anything. Yeah.
Actually, you're combining data from the first page with data from a subsequent page, a lower page in the hierarchy of the website.
Yeah.
Would you say it's easier to do it with WebScraper.io or with Import.io? Because I tried Import.io and I ran into trouble. This seems to be a more straightforward process.
Yeah. So the magic Import.io, it's very good when it works, but when you want some different data than what they think you want, then you have to like download the desktop tool, and it's kind of a similar process to this, but I just find WebScraper.io to be a nicer way to use it. But I know other people prefer Import.io, so I guess it's just personal preference. But yeah, you can see now that it has gotten, it has scraped it, and it has gotten all the names and also all the constituencies. So I can download this CSV now. And should have downloaded. Not sure exactly where it downloaded to. Let's find out. Oh, download now. There we go.
Because last year I was breaking my brain over the conference schedule.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So that's why before I came here I used Import.io for exactly what you did here, only to figure out how long each session was and whether they were parallel or overlapping or whatever. And I used the data to import it into an ICS file that I could use on my Google Calendar. But I really failed at adding the information about the language version of the session. Because it was on a subsequent page, and Import.io wouldn't let me pick it up.
If you want, we can look into how to do that afterwards. We have time. It's only 10. We have a half an hour more. So if I open this CSV, it will open in... so here are the MPs. And here are their constituencies. And this is just like where it got the data from. You don't need to include that if you don't want to, but I think it's always, it is like a good idea to say where you got your data, so that like 3 months later when you're opening up the spreadsheet or you're sending it to some colleagues and they've sent it around and they have no idea where you got the data from, so they don't know where to check if it's correct or something. So it's always a good idea where to get the data. You don't necessarily need to say, oh, all of these links. You could have just said, I got it from this route, I suppose. But that is just preference. And also you can delete this whole row if you. If you just wanted the names and the constituency. So I should have named this names. That is obvious now that I see it in a spreadsheet, right? Like I wrote MPs, it could have been, it would have been better if it was names. So that is also a thing that is a good tool. Before you start any scraping, just like draw out what data is it that I actually want, what are the columns that I want. And and that makes it a lot easier to just like click on the right things and not ask for like too much data. And of course, one of the things is just a last slide here, like please scrape responsibly. Take only what you need. When scraping, it's tempting to just grab everything because, you know, it's available, but it's a waste of their bandwidth and your time. So make a list of the data you want to extract and stick to it. Just because, like, we think of the internet as free, but like bandwidth is not free. And if you are requesting like hundreds of thousands of pages, like someone might notice and be angry and take it off the web. Like that has happened to some of my colleagues in La Nación, for instance. But yeah, I thought for the last half hour we could basically try to scrape any data that you want.
I have just one suggestion or question.
Yep.
That is more related to the sheet, whatever it is, Excel or Google Sheet. I recommend that once you have the raw data imported, to work with the sheets on the bottom.
Yes.
To have the original data set if you do manipulations later, because it can be very hard 2 months later to identify where the original data set was coming from.
Absolutely. So basically, you can have different sheets, and you can write like all the things. So in here I would put like website access on the state. This is the URL. Maybe why I was doing it, because you know I can forget. And sort of metadata like that, and the original data, and then you can copy it into like a separate sheet again and start doing manipulations. But yeah, that is just like a good spreadsheet etiquette. I don't know what else to call it. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, as journalists, you are probably used to keeping track of things like that. Yeah.
Hello, I'm a data journalist and I have a problem.
Right.
No. I want to scrape some data from different tables in several pages.
Yeah.
But these pages are not linked.
They're not linked.
For example, from a list, for example, in another page. But I can reach these tables, these pages, only by a search form.
Yeah.
Where I can type, I don't know, my municipality. But in Italy there are more than 8,000 of municipalities, and then I have I can reach the page and I can load the page with the table. So I have a big problem.
Yeah, that might be one of the things where you actually should talk to someone who does any programming. It might be easier to do it that way. So with web scrapio, you can simulate like element clicks. For instance, when I was like 2 weeks ago or something at The Guardian, I was trying to get all the manifestos from the different parties into a database. But there wasn't a database of all the manifestos. Like that's why I was making one, so it wasn't all in one place. But I did actually find this site called Vote for Policies, and they have a list of like all the manifestos, all of the policies, except in order to see them, you have to click on all these things and go continue to survey, and then you have to select one of these ones, and then you have to fill in the survey. Like you had to do so many clicks just to see them, so it was like a lot of effort. But you can do it with Web Scrapio because it has this element click. So you're just saying, click on all these things, get all that information after all those clicks, click on all those things, get all the information. But it doesn't have, as far as I know, it doesn't have the same thing for a search. So a search is not just a click, right? Because you have to put the search term in it. So I think that is where the limit of WebScraper.io is. And I'm not actually sure if Importio can do it either. So if I go to yeah, I can't remember that it has anything for search. You might have to actually do some programming for that one. The other thing you could also try to do is like when you create a sitemap, you can enter all of the URLs that you wanted. So you can even though they're not linked, you can link them. But yeah, we can look at it after if you have time. Anyone else have anything they want to scrape? Yeah.
I have the same kind of problem. It's PDFs.
Yeah, so there is actually a tool that is really good for scraping PDFs, and it's called Tableau. Is that right? Yeah, yeah. It's like this, Tableau.
No,
Tabular.
Going in the next section.
Ah, okay. Yeah, great, excellent. Yes, you stay here in the next session. It will all be explained. Yeah, PDFs can be tricky, but there are really good existing tools out there for extracting data from them. And I think the New York Times also has their own internal tool just for scraping PDFs. Anything else needs scraping? Anyone have any ideas of any data stories that they want to do? Yeah.
When I scrape different data, very often, when I scrape data from different websites, they often have very different formats. Is there a tool that would allow me to compare data sets and see matches? Because actually, a data set can be very large, and what I'm looking for is a subset that I found up from on another page. So is there a tool that would allow me to compare them and sort them and match them?
That would be very handy. I think you need to stay for the next session. I think when you are planning what to scrape, if you just if you do some good planning, then the less cleaning you have to do afterwards. But you always have to do some level of data cleaning, right? So here, for instance, I just grabbed the name. Actually, I want the last name and the first name to be in separate columns. That is something that I would do in the spreadsheet afterwards, and not when scraping. But yeah, I know it can be a problem to have normalizing the data cleaning. That is a whole other session.
Really talking about normalizing the data. But for example, here we have politicians and their constituencies. So maybe we want to know we have a list of politicians who voted for a specific measure. And now I want to run a comparison. What politicians from this website, with that constituency, from that party, voted in
so like kind
in the
of
past.
cross-referencing it.
Exactly. I'm looking for the cross-reference, and I'm looking for the smaller subgroup match between the two.
Yeah, I don't know any good sort of graphical tools for that. I tend to use Terminal. So if I have if I have different data sets, then I can just compare them very easily with command line tools, which we should totally do a session on.
Maybe two
data school. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 2 quick pointers on the data cross-referencing. There's two things you must try out. One is Vlookup, which is basically built into Excel, and it does that. It's called a vertical lookup. It's really hard to use and ugly, and it's horrible, but it's the only thing that Excel has. And the other thing is Google Fusion tables. That's what they build it for. Today, everybody uses it for visualization, but it's really made for merging different sorts of data.
Yeah, Google Fusion tables. I can't believe I forgot about that. I use this all the time at the Guardian. But the downside then is you have to use Google spreadsheets. And maybe you are not the biggest fan of Google. But it is actually quite easy to compare tables and things in using your computer. That's what it's good at. And I hope that maybe next year I can do a session on how to use command line tools for all of that things. So I don't know if anyone needs any help with scraping things. So yeah, I was basically hoping we'd have like a big table and we could all sit around it, and I'd go around and help everyone with their scraping. I'm very unfamiliar with like this workshop format as a workshop format. But yeah, if anyone wants to get their laptop out and do some scraping, then I am happy to help. Yeah. Do you want to try it, my laptop? To do some scraping.
I can try.
Yeah.
I tried to find about export credits, and it's like PDFs, and we have to click to see like every 3 months they publish the list of the projects funded.
Yeah.
And it's like a link to a PDF.
Yeah, that's annoying. But that might be another case where you might want to actually do some programming so that it can just tell it to check again every 3 months.
Okay.
So there are some things that you can't do with like the automated tools, but
maybe a ratio or
yeah.
You need to speak into the microphone because
sorry. We did.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, 20 minutes, so that's some time, yeah.
I think it would be useful because it's always useful for scraping for people to understand how the URL works and how URLs are generated and how to look at different pages. I don't know if that's useful or not. Maybe I'm just like distracting. And
Yeah, so how does the URL work? It's basically you type in some text in a browser, right? And that text is then translated into some numbers. Maybe there's a tool to look up exactly what numbers this text corresponds to. But if we go back to my a cute little drawing of how the web works. So you type in codeclub.org.uk, then there is a computer that knows that codeclub.org.uk corresponds to this string of numbers, and it goes to the computer that has that address, and it says, I want these files, and then it sends it to them. I don't know what to explain, really. Sorry. But basically how URLs work is, you know how I said you can have this this file here. Instead of a file, we could have a folder, and I put this file in here. And in here I can have another folder. And inside here, I can have more documents. So usually the root one is called index. So when you are requesting a website using a URL, it will normally look for a file called index, or if anything else is specified, and it will show that file. And then if you wanted this one instead, like say the URL was codeclub.co or codeclub.org.uk, then if you just go to codeclub.org.uk, then index.html would be the file that it displays. And if you want to go to webpage2.html, then you'd have to go to codeclub.org.uk/sites webpage2.html. If there was no like other URL like renaming or setup, but that is like the basics. If you remember what I was saying about the BBC, it used to be news.bbc, and I still go to that, and it doesn't exist anymore. Now it's bbc.co.uk/news. It's because they basically moved around where those documents are living. So they used to have a subdomain called news, but now they don't. Now all of them live in like this hierarchy here. Do you have any specific questions about how URLs work?
No, I mean, like when you scrape, sometimes you have similar data on different pages that have the same URL except for the last part, no?
Right.
And like when you build, like I don't know, I used import.io to build like crawlers, I think they're called.
Yeah.
So the difference is that each page is the same, has exactly the same structure and extremely similar URLs up until a point. And I think this kind of stuff is important for scraping as far as I understood.
If a website has pagination, which is like what it's usually called, like they have, like instead of having everything on one page, they will be separated into many pages, but they will look identical, but with different data on them. And it will usually just be like search result page 1, search result page 2, search result page 3, and things like that, right? So when you in the scraper, web scraper.io, just open it just to show you. Then when you create the sitemap, instead of putting in like, imagine this page was paginated, you could actually write in a range like 0 to 100,
I was thinking that it could be perhaps an answer as well to his question regarding search. Can't you circumvent the search by understanding how the URLs are made for each kind of result that the search returns?
Okay, so yeah, I touched upon it, like basically saying you can use WebScrape.io to build a sitemap with all of the URLs that you want, even if you can't like put in a search term. So it depends on how the website you are scraping, if they have made like a sensible URL or not. Not all websites, it will not work for all websites, but for instance for Twitter, I think Twitter is one of the ones it works for. I can do a search. What should I search for? DJ school, like this. So you can see here in the search that it says twitter.com/search $Q equals, and then this just means like I don't know, space or something, I forget. It's like a decoding thing. And then this was my search phrase. And then it has some extra stuff added at the end that I'm not sure what it is using for, but you could use this to basically hack it so that you can search for other things without doing an actual search. So you just change this phrase here. So if instead of doing the DJ school, I can do International Journalism Festival 15, and it works. But not all websites are structured like that, so it would only work if they have a hackable URL like that. But yeah, it's a good point that you could, instead of having to program something that puts in a search term, you can just hack the URL to do it. So I'm trying to think of other websites that do nice hackable URLs like this. I think Last.fm is one of them. Just because I used to work there, I know it. But it's a database for like all the artists and events and like people scrabbling music. But you could go, I don't know, if I'm looking for events. So you can see that they have the artist name here and then just plus events. So if I just wanted to find a lot of different artists, I can just change the URL to put in the artist that I want. And if I wanted lots of different things, like maybe pictures, you can say that you see that they just have plus images there, so it's really easy. It's basically like a very basic API through the URL. And you know, like albums are plus albums, so it all makes sense, right? So you can just you know, change this and change this to get all the data you want without having to like click on everything. You just put in those search. So yeah, some websites are nice and do it like that. Others are not so nice. Let's see here. If I search for, I don't know, which is, if I search for about Diane. So it's actually quite nice as well. So you can, if I try to find an example that has pagination, what could I search for? What will have lots of results? I don't know. I searched labor.
I have, when you're done.
Yeah, so here's just one example with the pagination. So you can see at the end here, it has a really, really nice and page equals 1. So what you can do is just you put in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 to get a specific page, but what you can do in WebScrape.io, and I think also in Port.io, is that you can just write the range. So you just write like you want 0 to page 100 or something like this, and it will go through all of those. So that's a really nice feature. But yeah, it depends on how the website has made it, yeah.
I sometimes scrape movie data, and very often pages will actually still have older years online programs, movie libraries, but you can't actually reach them over the current website.
Right.
So maybe they only show the films up to 2010, but actually on the page still active are databases going back to 2000 or 2005. And you can often just try changing in the URL the year, because they're very consistent in publishing these pages, and you can just go back to the program of 2007, even though you can't actually see a link on their page. So you can just, inch your way back into the past on pages you want more information about.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to just play around with hacking the URLs. I think I used the Last.fm one to basically show me all concerts for anything related to jazz. Because I didn't do that on the website, but all the information is there. And I could hack the URL just to be show all the events that are tagged with jazz, just because of the way they put the URL together. It's nice.
So I have one question. From the practice of in the newsroom, what is the typical way of how you can work with the journalists, and that because they often have short time schedules. They don't say, I need it now, right? Can you point to some examples of articles that were based on extraction of data, a few examples?
Well, the LA Times has a few, for instance, using the data coalition thing that I was talking about before. California civic data, and they wrote about it on their blog, I think. If I go Calax, I think it's this one.
Okay, so they're making a story about the quest to open the database as well.
Well, yeah.
I think in many countries where open data is not a thing and it's not readily available, newspapers use a lot scraping, and the one I'm quite familiar with is La Nación Data from Argentina. It's one of their missions to open up data and put it back on the web in open formats. So I think they do quite a lot of scraping as well.
Yeah, I know my fellow Juan is at La Nación right now, and he is writing so many scrapers. And they are trying to collect all the government data and all the election data, because they have an election coming up. But yeah, this LA Times article is just, they're saying that this person used to be against big money, but now he is collecting millions. And they know that because they can easily look up the total amount received for each person in this data coalition finance browser that they made specifically for journalists to just find stories. So yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask this, because I've only been in a newsroom for 3 months. And the projects that I have worked on have been longer term projects, not breaking news. So for instance, for the election, we have known that it's going to happen for 5 years. It's not breaking news, so we could have a lot in place for the election beforehand. And also, Guardian is doing this divestment climate change project that is, you know, a 6-month-long project. But one of the things that my friend made, which is just like a little scraper tool, it's a really interesting bot, and it just looks at who is editing Wikipedia. And one of the more popular ones is whenever someone edits Wikipedia from inside Parliament, it makes a tweet. And, you know, a lot of the time it's just like someone is in Parliament and they're editing a webpage, and it's not a big story. But then sometimes it is people trying to like, oh no, there's like bad press about me, I need to edit this Wikipedia article to remove all the links to that bad press and things like that. So that is a more example of like, not exactly breaking news, but like a thing that can happen quickly, like you set up the scraper in advance, and when something interesting happens, it will alert you. In this case, it's a Twitter bot that just says, someone from inside the Parliament edited this specific page, and then you can go to the edit history and see what was edited. But it is sometimes very interesting.
Thank you very much. Open for questions. If you have questions directly to Linda, approach her. And are you open for questions via mail as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think the easiest way to reach me is via Twitter, but you can email me as well. And yeah, I hope that you will try scraping. And if you are trying today and tomorrow, I'm not leaving until Monday, so I can, you know, help you with any scraping things. I was really hoping that everyone would like start scraping today. Yes.
We will also document this session and put it on EJC blog, actually data-driven journalism blog, and the School of Data blog, so you'll have some documentation from it. We're also tweeting. We're the only ones tweeting with EJ School. Come on, help us. So yeah, let's take a short break, and then we'll have the next session with Pudo over there. And yeah, if you want as well certificates, come get them from me. Just have to give us some feedback. So schoolofdata.org/feedback.
And I just wanted to say one more thing quickly. Sorry, I'm doing another session today on Arduinos, and it's going to, like, on censored journalism, but using Arduinos, and I have a bag full of Arduinos and fun things to play with in there, and that will be, like, actual hands-on things. I think we'll have to rearrange this room a bit, but, like, you know, sit together and play with sensors and things, so please come to that, yeah.